You're listening to Pitch Perfect, the podcast, not the movie. I'm one of your hosts, and my name is Nate. And the other one of your hosts is named Josh, and you might know him more from his work as the set designer for House Ghost, Ghost House, and House Guest. And his name is Josh. I don't remember if I said that or not.
Yes, that is correct. Hello. I am here in flesh. I'm not a ghost. There's a rumor. It's not true. I promise you.
If you're not a ghost, then eat this snail.
What?
I have a snail.
Ghosts can eat snails. That wouldn't prove anything.
Yeah, you're right. Most ghosts are French. And most cats are gray.
Why do you think you only see snails when it's raining? It's because ghosts can't come out in the rain because the rain perforates their ectoplasm.
Snails only come out when it is raining.
So the ghosts don't get them, obviously. What is happening? I feel like we lost our minds.
No, we've completely lost it. I mean, that's kind of been the arc of this season. Kind of was the arc of the last season, too. It might just be how recording podcasts together works.
God, I hope not. Alright, well, I guess we should get into it.
We should.
Also, stop shoving that snail in my face.
Okay. I'll put it back in my pocket.
Alright, so, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose smile, and drug-widened eyes, and wheeze of lame command, tell that its sculptor well these passions read, which yet survive. Stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal, these words appear. His name is Pauly Shore, some guy who pretty much sucks. Look upon his works, ye mighty, and give up all hope. And so we have. Be dead inside, and so we are. Welcome to On Distant Shores. My co-host and I talk about the awful journey of failed actor-comedian Pauly Shore, and how it maybe could have gone extraordinarily way better.
Yes, we've been watching a sort of survey of the films of Pauly Shore with the goal of, at the end, pitching the perfect Pauly Shore movie. We maybe totally overestimated how cohesive his filmography was. Well, in a way, I don't know, we made mistakes. And now we have to live with them. And now you're here with us, living in these mistakes. And our latest and last mistake in this season is watching the film Guest House from 2020.
Yes, we thought we were driving this car of the podcast away from a ditch, which was Pauly Shore's Adopted from 2010, where he goes to Africa and does racist crap. But no, we drove into a separate ditch of The Guest House.
I have not seen Pauly Shore's Adopted and won't. But I assume, while this is probably also a ditch, I would like to imagine that the adopted ditch is, wet and muddy. And this is just, a regular hole.
Yes, that is probably accurate. Whew, boy, though.
Do you want me to tell the people what happens in the film Guest House?
Yes, please dictate to us the crime that occurred in this here Guest House.
I'm going to be real with you before I get into actually doing a summary. This was, weirdly one of the hardest ones. Because I just, couldn't remember what happened in this movie or what order the events happened in. It wasn't like in the Army now where trying to think about that movie bent my brain out of shape. It was just one of these ones where I was like, okay, then what? Wait, what happened? Why?
I think the problem with that is we needed to record immediately after Guest House in order to remember it. We just waited too long.
Yeah. But here's my best shot at summarizing Guest House, which is it's like a nothing movie. So, a failed clone of Bo Burnham and a failed clone of Rachel Bilson want to buy a house, and they do. And the house comes with a guest house, and inside the guest house is a man named Randy Cockfield, who is an eccentric drug doer. And he's played by Pauly Shore. They let him live in their guest house for many months after they arrived, despite not enjoying his presence. Eventually, the woman in the relationship, Sarah, instructs Craig, the man in the relationship, to...
Blake.
Blake. Why did I think his name was Craig?
I don't know.
I wrote Craig down. Blake has to go and kick Randy out. But every time he goes to reprimand Randy or try to remove him from the guest house, he ends up getting high with him, and then something unfortunate and unlucky happens to Blake. This escalates into a feud between the two, particularly because of an instance where Blake is supposed to shut down a party/possible orgy that Randy is throwing, but instead gets really high and fires a bottle rocket into his own gazebo, burning it down and getting arrested. Hijinks sort of go back and forth. They're not terribly amusing hijinks, but they involve Randy getting a restraining order, Blake bug bombing the house while Randy's in it, Randy drugging Blake and Sarah's bottled water to make them really horny, which gets Blake fired from his skateboard job where he works for Steve-O. And eventually, they have a rehearsal dinner for their wedding, which Randy crashes by releasing a feral possum puppet/CGI model that mauls their guests. And then he also drugs their entire wedding party, which leads to a bunch of chaos. And then you're really going to have to help me here, because I don't know why this happens, but then Randy reconciles with them and sells all of the stuff from his house, his guest house, which was all a bunch of valuable artifacts left to him by his parents, who were the original owners of the regular house. And he makes them a nursery for their future child. And then he goes to hang out on a boat. And that's basically the movie, right?
More or less. You're missing one step, you kind of skipped a single step. So, after, the wedding drugged fiasco, Blake ends up in jail again, along with Pauly Shore's Randy Cockfield. Lovely name. Great name. And then Sarah comes to jail, and she's like, maybe it's us. Maybe all these antics that are happening with this one dude who's ruining our life is our fault. And we shouldn't get married, and it's our relationship that's bad.
Yes.
And then she breaks up with him after revealing that she's pregnant with his child. Okay. And then, a couple of months pass. Mm-hmm. The timeline of this movie is awful. We'll talk about it. And then, at a certain point, Randy Cockfield organizes a reverse meet cute where he pretends to be the landlord, or has the landlord do him a favor and have them come back to the house before they were trying to sell it to reconcile, and tricks them and also gives them the house because he owns it because it's his parents' house.
Yeah, I said that part. Yeah, see, yeah. I got to that point where I was like, okay, they break, the wedding happens and then things are bad and then they get back together because of Randy. And, I couldn't for the life of me remember that middle part, and I refused to watch the movie again. Not watch the movie again, but I refused to watch any more of the movie because I was like, I could go and, skip around and remind myself what happened. But then I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So I didn't do that. So I couldn't remember that part.
So here's the thing, listeners. If you could feel yourself dissociate as we describe this very tedious movie to you, we're right there with you, because I was dissociating as Nate was describing it, and I had to claw myself back to Earth, back into my ghost house. I may have revealed too much. Back into my house, where I got into my body, and it was like, I have to help him with this, oh no. So yeah, that is 2020's Guest House. And, man, I feel like we should rate this.
Yeah, this movie is really bland. And just, exceptionally, almost, aggressively mediocre. It's nowhere near as bad as something like Pauly Shore is Dead. But it's just, there's really nothing to this. It's not funny. It's not exciting. The acting isn't very good. The music is kind of bad, but not, super noticeably bad. It looks really bland, but it's not, ugly.
The writing is bad.
Yeah. There's, one kind of, gross, problematic joke. But even that is not, as, in your face as stuff from other Pauly Shore movies we've watched. It's really just a big nothing of a movie. We were watching it together, as we do for this podcast. And basically every scene, we had some kind of suggestion to each other about, like, how it could have been better, how it could have been funnier. And the movie kind of begs you to do that because everything is so, like, bland. It needed, like, a couple dials just turned up. It needed to be more intense and vibrant. It needed to be more absurd, I think. And it needed to escalate faster and more precipitously. Like, the movie's watchable for the most part, but why would you do that? That's my ultimate takeaway on this. I don't know who this is for or what you're supposed to get out of it. This is going to feel so mean. I'm worried that I'm going to be too mean.
Just do it.
People like to compare watching boring things to watching paint dry. But watching paint dry is a deliberate action. You're choosing to be alone with your thoughts and with a visual representation of the passage of time. There's like a reason that someone like John Cage would make 433 or Andy Warhol would make Empire. These works of art that are about nothing happening, that are literally just silence or a static shot of a building, because they're about the fact that there's nothing happening. You're forced to consider things. This movie is boring, but it is not like watching paint dry, because watching paint dry is more interesting. You might contemplate your own mortality when you were watching paint dry. But this, you're not going to contemplate anything. This is like folding laundry. It's like a menial task that occupies enough of your brain that you're not really going to think about anything else while it's happening. And you're not really going to get anything out of it besides the fact that when it's over, it is over.
Wow. That is... Wow. Very poetic. I approve. So Nate, now that you've said all of those things, what would you rate this out of 10 or 5 or, I don't know, a random amount of things like snails?
Okay, so I have like a set of, we've talked about it before. I don't know if I've ever like explained it, but I have like an actual scale that I use based on like what my like one word reaction to a movie would be. So for me, a 4 out of 10 or a 2 out of 5 is mediocre. But I would knock this down half a star for just being too mediocre to be mediocre. It's so mediocre that it becomes bad. So I think I would give this a 3 out of 10 or a 1.5 stars out of 5.
Okay. Oh boy, I don't know how I could follow up on that, so I won't. I'll just go my own way, like that one band. I completely agree with everything you said. Guest House is so mediocre, it redefines the term mediocre. It is completely shallow and exceptionally poorly written and very poorly directed as well. I don't think this movie has much to offer in any category. I don't even remember if there was music in this movie. I don't even remember the existence of a soundtrack. So I guess there was one. There had to be one. And it didn't leave an impression. And I really think the nicest way that I could describe this film, to give a counterpoint to Nate being incredibly mean, the nicest thing I could say about this film is that it's literally just a pile of nothing.
Yeah.
No, that was mean again. So, I also have a similar scale of how I rate movies, just in general. And for me, I also agree that 2 stars out of 5 or 4 out of 10 is a mediocre at best. Just like that's where that would go. And if it goes a little bit higher, there's something that you definitely enjoy about that movie, right? Something that stands out to you. On the opposite spectrum, like going lower for like 1.5 stars or 3 out of 10 would be, it's like there's something about its nature that is just incredibly flawed. It's not unwatchable, but at the same time, you're not going to enjoy watching it.
Yeah, it's got like a weird rough edge or something that's just like gonna poke at you.
Exactly. And then like going further below that with like 1 star, 2 out of 10, bad, pretty much unwatchable. It's not quite utter garbage, which I consider like the lowest score you can give, which is like 0.5 or 1 out of 10. but it is just bad, right? But you can see they attempted to make a movie. This, I guess they attempted to make a movie. It's not unwatchable, so I have to agree with Nate's rating and give it a 1.5 stars out of 5, 3 out of 10. But, I mean, I gotta say, don't watch this movie. Just listen to us talk about it, as we've said for almost every fucking movie we've watched this season, with the exception of maybe the first two.
Like, this is not anywhere near the worst movie we've watched for this season, but it is, like, the one that I would least recommend. Like, there's a kind of person that likes to hurt themselves with media. Me. There are Nate-like people in this world who I could
it's
be
the
like...
opposite of a cinephile. I don't know what that would be.
A cinedophile.
Oh, no.
Who, like, I could begrudgingly be like, you know what, dude, I see in you the darkness I see in myself. You should watch Pauly Shore is Dead, just to have watched it at least. But there's, like, no one on earth where I would be like, watch Guest House. Like, unless you were like, I have, like, reverse crank disease, by which I mean a bomb in my heart. And if I get too excited, I'm gonna die. But I have to watch something. I might be like, okay, watch Guest House, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Wow. Really bringing yourself down to base materials right there, huh, Nate?
I know.
Alright, before we get into high point and low point, I think we need to have a little bit of a conversation about who was involved in this movie, and I'm not talking about the actors. I'm talking about the people that wrote and directed it.
I mean, after watching the movie, this is almost a bubble bath moment, but I'm down to talk about it here.
I mean, I feel like we need to get out of the way.
Because I am confused afterwards. Like, okay, so we were going to do Pauly Shore's Job today, and we watched Pauly Shore's Dead, and it was so bad. And then Josh was looking at Pauly Shore's filmography, and he approached me and was like, hey, let's watch this Guest House, because it's, like, from 2020. And it's on Netflix, so it would be easy for us to watch. And it's not a mockumentary, and he doesn't go to Africa in it. And I'm like,
and maybe
okay.
He won't say the N-word.
And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm fine with that. And then I looked up the movie, because I was like, what even is this? And I was like, okay, so the director's some guy named Sam Macaroni. That's a funny name, but I don't know anything about this person.
I know something about Sam Macaroni, and I could talk about that, but continue on.
Then I looked at the writers, and there's like, he's one of the writers, I think. And there's another person who I'd never heard of. And then the last name on...
Sean Bishop.
Yeah. And then the last name on the list was Troy Duffy. And I was like, that can't possibly be the... I don't know how, because that's a very distinctive name, but that has to be a different person than the one that I know. And then I looked it up, and no, it's not. It is the Troy Duffy I'm aware of, who's the writer and director of Boondock Saints, and basically nothing else, except that he wrote this movie.
Yes. So for those who are unaware, Troy Duffy is specifically known for writing and directing Boondock Saints, the 1999 American vigilante thriller, as well as its sequel, Boondock Saints 2, All Saints' Day, which came out at a time afterwards. And just to provide a little bit of my film background, Boondock Saints, the original, is a movie that I know is flawed, but I love it because it's so amazingly dumb. It's really just a fun time regardless. It's one of those vigilante movies where it's like, hell yeah, let's get to it. And the sequel's not bad. It's a little bit more of the same. To give you, the listeners, from my perspective, and also just to show that, you know, I also have my moments. With Boondock Saints, I'd probably give it a 5 out of 5, just because I love it so much. And the sequel, I'd probably give a 3 out of 5, just because it's still fun, but noticeably lacking in the creative department. And that's all Troy Duffy has done. And then we see he's on Guest House. It's like, that's weird. And it's even weirder because of the way we describe this movie in comparison to the things he's known for.
I mean, it is seriously like, it's like if Robert Rodriguez only did, like, El Mariachi and Desperado, and then didn't do anything else until he, like, showed up as a writer on Dirty Grandpa. Like, that is the reaction that I had to this. Like, it was so strange. The only thing I can think of is, like, he must have been doing, like, script punch-up for in between doing Boondock Saints movies. And this is just happened to be one where he did enough rewriting that he got a writing credit. Because for people who don't know, the way writing credits work in Hollywood is kind of weird. You could take a screenplay that exists and rewrite every page of it and not get a credit on the final film, because you only get a credit if you add a significant percentage of new material to the script. If you're just tweaking and changing stuff, even if you're totally rewriting the dialogue, if you're not adding new scenes or characters, you don't get a credit. So he could have potentially have tweaked a shit ton of scripts between Boondock Saints and now and not gotten a credit because he was just polishing things. That's my only theory that I have.
Maybe. Let's talk about Sam Macaroni a bit, and maybe that'll help us fill in the blanks. Sam Macaroni is some background guy who doesn't really have a lot to add to anything. Guest House is his first wrote and directed film, but he also directed Keanu Reeves in VR action sequences for John Wick 3. Apparently, and this is his connection to Troy Duffy, apparently was hired to write and develop a television show for Boondock Saints Origins. But that was in 2016, and I don't think that's ever been a thing. And also, he's big in the YouTube community, where he's been some sort of corporate sleaze for things like Epic Rap Battles of History and other stuff we'll get into later because it actually directly ties into this movie. That's what information I can give on Sam Macaroni. Sean Bishop is a name. That's all I got on that.
Yeah, I assume he's just some screenwriter guy. Or he's a friend of theirs or something. I had never heard of this dude at all.
Sam Macaroni has some connection to Troy Duffy. I assume that he just sent the script to Troy Duffy, and Troy Duffy lied and said he looked at it, and then sent it back, and then Sam credited Troy Duffy. That's really the only reasonable explanation in my head.
Yeah, it was I was waiting, we were watching the movie, and I was like, okay, so when is the Troy Duffy part gonna happen? And the only thing I can think of is there's a punch happens in the movie. I don't know
that didn't feel like a Troy Duffy punch, though. That felt more like a Zack Snyder punch.
Yeah, I was like, is there gonna be an action-y thing? Nothing. I was just we got to the end and I was like, oh, I was excited to watch the movie. I didn't think it was gonna be good, but I was excited to watch the movie because of this bizarre credit on it. And then we watched the movie, and it was the next day where I was like, oh, wait a second.
If we watch Guest House, and you didn't know that Troy Duffy was involved in it, at the end, if I told you that, you'd be like, no fucking way. No way. Nothing happened.
Yeah. Because, there's lots of criticisms to be made of Boondocks. I mean, you've acknowledged it's flawed. I'm not, in love with the movie. I watched it after getting it hyped up by a bunch of people, though. But, I would never say it was boring or bland.
No.
That would be the last thing I would say about that movie.
You know how, people say that one of their favorite movies is The Room because of how dumb it is?
Mm-hmm.
I feel that way about Boondock Saints specifically. I can acknowledge how bad certain things are and how they probably haven't aged well and how dumb the action sequences can be, but there's just something about Willem Dafoe screaming, "There was a firefight!" and doing finger guns, and that just makes me live for cinema. So I have to rate it extraordinarily high, just for me.
Yeah, look, I'm a person who one of my favorite movies is The Crow. And there's a certain kind of thing where it's there's this life cycle that I actually really enjoy, where it's a movie at the time, it's that it comes out, you're like, this is cool. And then it passes into this is dumb. And then it passes into, it's cool that this is dumb. And it's dumb how cool this is.
Yes. This is what they'll be saying about Willy's Wonderland 20 years from now.
Oh, for sure.
And I can't wait, because I can be I was the one who thought it was cool first. I'm the Willy's Wonderland hipster. We've talked about that movie way too much on this podcast.
I know. Talked about that movie more than maybe anyone on the planet except for the people that made it. And even then, I might think that we maybe talked about it more.
Our listeners are going to watch that movie based on us talking about it, and they're going to completely discount all of our opinions on everything.
But if there are listeners, they're going to think about us, and they're going to get to the pinball sequence, and they're going to be like, I see.
Now that's cinema, baby.
They're going to hear our voices go, well, I think the high point is the part where he plays pinball.
Okay, let's move on. We should do high point, low point. Let's start high, and then we should swing low, sweet chariot, swing low. Do you want to give us one, Nate? I can if you can't.
Okay, I mentioned it already, but there is a part where Blake, not Craig,
Blake.
or Craig, does a slow motion uppercut on Pauly Shore.
Yes, that's in my notes too. That's the Snyder moment we're referencing.
Yeah, and it's like one of the only like moments of like stylization in the movie, and it really does like sort of surprise you and catch you off guard. I mean, I think like comedy is about the subversion of expectations, right?
Usually, yeah.
This movie doesn't do that. And that's the one moment that's surprising. So it's like the most that it works as a comedy is in that one moment where it's like he's just finally gotten so fed up with this dude ruining his life that he just does a Mortal Kombat attack on him. And that's pretty funny.
It's like an X-ray too, where he just flies in the air and everything's slowed down. And I think we cut to Sarah reacting in real time or something like that. But it's like out of nowhere in this fucking American Pie-esque movie, and I don't know, it got me. It was like, all right, that's kind of what I wanted.
Do you have a different high point?
Yes.
Okay.
I have two very small ones, and then one big one, which I think you probably have the big one as well. So I'm just going to start with the small ones. There's a point post-party where Sarah wakes up from her deep slumber of taking an Ambien, I guess, and can't find Blake because he's been arrested, and goes out to view the destruction of the party, and the house is just covered in dicks. Just random objects moved in the shape of dicks post-party, like pool noodles and other random debris and other stuff. And also, I think there was a dick floaty, I believe, in the pool. Now, the dick floaty, whatever, sight gag.
Dick floaty.
Dick floaty is a sight gag. But the other stuff requires precision, which is like, apparently everyone at the party was completely gone, wasted, and drunk, and whatever. So to have like the mental fortitude to be like, I'm going to turn these pool noodles into a very visibly accurate penis that's huge. And to have the coordination and mental fortitude for that is just unreal. And I don't know, I guess it was funny for just the absurdist idea of like what must have happened behind the scenes.
I get why they did it the way they did. Like, it makes sense from how you're supposed to write a joke and make a comedy movie that you would just cut to the morning and show all the dicks. But it would have been, I think, much funnier if they had shown us the implied scene of like everybody just like completely trashed and zombied out, and then just Randy Cockfield in like a trance of inspiration, just running around the backyard, feverishly arranging dicks.
Yeah, like he like smokes. Oh, he inhales. Well, really revealing that I don't do drugs. He snorts.
Oh no!
Coke.
The people that listen to our podcast are gonna think we're not cool.
He snorts coke, and then just has it like his eyes go wide, and then he just like the Flash runs around the yard, but just instead of like saving people, he just creates penises in this way.
Yeah, see, that would have been funny. This movie doesn't do that. Not interested in that.
No, it does not. So I mean, it was funny to think about. It's not the best joke, but the way it was done, that's just,
I have a similar conceptual non-high point that also involves penises.
Oh boy, it's almost like this movie was made for that.
We get to say a lot of fun sentences on this podcast. See, he has a bong that looks like a dick. It's not funny in the movie.
Because they don't use it properly.
Yes,
they don't
exactly.
ever pay it off.
Exactly. See, what I was saying before about subversion of expectations, right? They don't do that. So you see the dick penis. The dick penis. Hi, I'm Dick Penis. You see the dick bong. And just everything you would imagine happens, and it's not funny. Like, a guy, he smokes out of it and looks like he's sucking a dick. That's it. He takes a picture of him, there's no payoff on it. But, so the dick bong in and of itself is not funny in the movie. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, if I went to my friend's house, and they had that in real life, it would be funny. Then? Like, but not the way they use it in the movie. But it would be a funny product for someone to own. So that's not really a high point, but that is a thing I thought about.
Yeah, I was actually thinking the dick-bong thing was more of a low point, because they set it up and then it never paid off, and it's like, it seems exceptionally useful to pay off for the character, where, like, he's like, definitely, like, putting him in a blackmail situation, like, if you trust me, you'll do my dick-bong and we'll be friends. This is the friendship test. And then he takes a picture, and it's like, oh, he has clear blackmail on this person. Now this person can't say no for whatever wacky shenanigans he wants to do, but that's never happens.
Yeah, exactly. There's no payoff, but it's also this thing where you see it and you're like, okay, someone's gonna smoke out of it and it's gonna like sucking your dick, and then that just happens, and there's no twist on it. They don't do anything.
Yeah,
like that's this whole movie.
It's like the equivalent of like saying, "Oh, hey, there's this hole up ahead of my path. I hope I don't fall into it." Oh no, I fell into a hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hit me with another one of your little high points.
Here's a little baby high point, little baby possum high point. One of my proclivities and enjoyments in movies is practical effects. I like practical effects. I think they're a lot of fun. It's why I am a big horror nerd. The possum scene is when, during a rehearsal dinner, Randy Cockfield decides that he wants to release a possum that he has doped up with this imaginary drug called Flocka, which just makes people go insane.
It's just bath salts.
I think it's worse than bath salts because, like, there's a whole montage of him showing Blake what people do on Flocka, and it's literally them just screaming at the camera, mostly, and running around naked. So he puts his possum on Flocka, and then sends the possum out. And there is an extended period where the possum is a puppet, and then an extended period where the possum is CGI, as Nate mentioned earlier. When the possum is a puppet, I think it's a very fun and dumb puppet that I enjoyed.
The possum puppet looks great. It's got like huge bug out eyes, and like the mouth is all full of like drippy fangs. It doesn't look realistic, but it is like, it's a fun. It kind of reminds me of, it's not as good, but it kind of reminds me of the Sumatran rat monkey from Dead Alive.
I was literally just about to say that. Yes, where I mean, it's the Sumatran rat monkey was like very on purpose poor CGI. It can move around like a claymation figure. This thing was just very poorly puppeted. Where it just like, it sits at the edge of the table and just looks back and forth between Blake and Sarah as they're screaming. And there's some like hissing noises over that, but just like, it just kind of like turns its head back and forth for like an extended minute of nothing happening. And while that was stupid, again, it's like what Nate was saying with the penis bong. It's like, oh, I like the puppet. The puppet's fun. If I saw that puppet at my friend's house, it'd make me laugh. And then it turns to a CGI creature, which looks awful, and then runs around, and that's bad. And then also it's referenced later for some reason, so that's cool, I guess. Actually, you know what? No, they set up
why
the
they
possum.
made it CGI. They had to have done it looks bad.
I guess there is some semblance of right in this movie, because there's a scene where Randy Cockfield happens upon a possum, but he's so stoned he thinks it's a cat, and then he freaks out that it's a possum. Then the possum shows up later to be the Flocka possum. And then the possum shows up at the end where he's on the boat with Randy Cockfield. So, I don't know.
You know what? That's another, like, minor high point, but one that only is a minor high point in relation to other movies we've watched in this season, which is that the possum doesn't die.
Yeah, that's true. He didn't shoot it with an AK at close range to get water from the ground.
Yeah. Or hit it with a car or something, like all of the shit that happens in Biodome.
Yeah. Shoot a flare at it.
So we got one more, right? You got a big one? I don't know if this is the same. If we have the same thing, because I kind of have one more. Tell me what your big one is.
I feel like it is, because this was a moment that you, like had, like, a revelation of, like, oh, this is, like, a really funny thing. Where, when they meet up at the house, and they were tricked into being in the house by, like, a call from the landlord, or the realty estate, that was, like, saying you need to come here, and it's before the final sale of the house. And they get to the house, and then they're, like, confused, because they're looking at each other, like, I didn't know you were going to be here, I didn't know you were going to be here, etc. and so forth. And then Pauly Shore's Randy Cockfield, laughing maniacally from the attic, falls through the roof
That's during the wedding sabotage.
Oh God, This movie's just one big blur.
But yeah, that
I'm
is
so
fine.
sorry.
It cuts to it. He's just like, and like dancing in the attic, and then immediately falls to the ceiling and is found out. Yeah, that's like the best comedic timing the movie has.
Okay, no, so cut out everything I said. It's the wedding scene. This movie, my God.
Yeah, that was my last one too. I mean, that's a pretty sorry collection of high points, if we're being honest.
I mean, that's been this season, dude.
Yeah. What do you think was the best one?
I think it's either the slow-mo Snyder punch or him falling through the ceiling.
I think it's him falling through the ceiling. We really are suckers for physical comedy.
Yeah, we are. It caught us off guard, and it was probably the best comedic timing in this entire movie. And it felt right. I don't know, like I think we constantly talked, like you said, about punching up this movie as we went along. I don't think we would change that. That would still happen.
Yeah, I would leave that.
So I'm fine with that being our high point.
So what is our season high point?
So surprisingly, we're still in the grungy asshole era. That has never not
you would
been.
think after all this time there would be some amount of course correction. I'm not saying go back to the weasel, but just like do something else. But no.
Well, especially we might talk about this a little bit more in depth, but especially like after watching Pauly Shore is Dead, where he's like, I'm going to improve myself and be a better actor. And then we jumped from that 2003 movie to the 2020 movie, and in 17 years, he's the same. He hasn't learned a goddamn thing. Yeah, so the grungy asshole high point is the dog playing Jeopardy arc from Jury Duty.
No, that's way better than this.
So much better. So yeah, moving on.
And then it goes without saying that the Weasel high point, Wheeze the Juice, is also obviously much better if we're trying to do like an overall thing. Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah. So low points. Low point is the ghostly apparition of Josh, watching the physical body of Josh sit down and watch this movie as it left its own body to figure out what the hell is going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to agree. The thing is, there's like not a ton that's just like, it's just this movie's like bland. It's boring. There's nothing. There's not a lot where I'm like, oh god, no. There's a lot of funny cop in this, which is a thing that I hate.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that? Because that's like on my low points. Let's talk about Randy Copfield.
He's friends with a cop that he keeps getting to arrest Blake and also serve him the restraining order. It's like he's supposed to be like funny and wacky, and he yells at Blake, and he like makes him get handcuffed. And there's this also related to this. It maybe could be a separate low point. Lou Ferrigno is in this movie. That's not a low point in and of itself. I like Lou Ferrigno.
Let's talk about who's in this movie.
Lou Ferrigno.
So the cop is played by Eric Griffin, who's like just a character actor.
He's the guy where you're like, oh, I know that guy, but I don't remember from where. That's the kind of guy he is.
Exactly. Yes, much like Taylor Negron. Lou Ferrigno's in here, weirdly enough. Chris Kattan's in here, weirdly enough. Steve-O, we mentioned that. And then also Imhotep from 1999's The Mummy is in here.
By which he means not Imhotep from The Mummy, but in fact Billy Zane.
But he looks like Imhotep from The Mummy.
Yeah. A very gravelly Billy Zane. I said when we were watching it that I feel like Billy Zane and Michael Keaton and James Spader have just all ended up having exactly the same voice.
Yes. Also, Bobby Lee's in this movie. And in most cases, when you see that Bobby Lee is in a movie, you need to run in the opposite direction.
Yeah, Bobby Lee does not have a great track record.
It's funny, like he has like very small roles in movies that I enjoy. Like Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, Pineapple Express, and Paul. But like 9 times out of 10, you see that Bobby Lee's in the movie, it's not going to be a good movie.
Yeah. But it's also like him and Chris Kattan are both in it, and like they don't really do anything. Like they don't really have like characters with bits. Like you would, looking at the credits, right, and you see those two in particular, you're like, oh, they're going to show up and have like a wacky character and have like a little scene where they have like a bit and there's like a game to it.
I mean, Chris Kattan kind of does.
Kind of, but like barely.
Yeah, Bobby Lee is just playing himself in this movie.
Yeah, he's just Randy Cockfield's friend.
Yeah. Also, we see him naked because he's Bobby Lee.
Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna see Bobby Lee's butt.
So, get back to your low point.
Yeah, okay, so Lou Ferrigno plays a cop in the movie, too. He's like, I don't know, he's the guy at the jail.
He's the guy at the jail who's, like, weirdly happy with his job.
Yeah, and, like, a little horny, and it's like the movie's kind of doing, like, a joke about, like, assault in prison, but, like, not really. It's mostly just that he's like, yeah, when he shows up and gets put in prison.
He's doing, like, the bit where, like, let me know if you need anything for your room.
Yeah. And, like, that sucks. But it's, like, nowhere near as bad as some of the stuff in other movies, too, where it's just, like, I'm like, okay, this is bad. But also, then I think about everything that happened to Pauly Shore is dead, and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. I have a lot of, like, small ones and then a few big ones, so I'm just gonna knock out these small ones real quick. In the Flocka montage of people freaking out Flocka, clearly a dude just full-on eats a live bird. Wasn't a fan of that.
Actually, that's kind of funny. I didn't see that.
We talked about the CGI possum. Okay, so another instance of this movie just trying to just live off of sight gags is one time when Blake goes over to the guest house to complain to Randy Cockfield that he's being an asshole. Blake is having a conversation, we don't see Randy, and then we see Randy, and Randy's just taking a shit in the closet. And that's just it. That's the joke. The joke is that he's taking a shit. So we get to see Pauly Shore take a shit again, which is...
I got a low point. His name is Randy Cockfield, okay? Like, that's not funny, but whatever. There's a part, he does this like twice, where he says, in the field, I give the girls my what? And that line sucks.
Yeah, it sucks real bad. There is a point where the guy that we're supposed to think is cool, Blake, is talking to one of his groomsmen, and the groomsman is like, yo, when you get married, that's the time to get that anal, bro. And then he's like, and he just like nods. He's like, yeah.
There are a lot of parts of this, like, it's hard for me to articulate this as a low point, because it's not like a specific thing. But, like, when I was reviewing it, and I was like, oh, this needs to be, like, ratcheted up a couple dials. There are lots of scenes like that. I'm thinking in particular almost every time where Blake goes and ends up getting high with Randy, where it's like, there's, like, not a lot of, like, reason or weight behind stuff happening in the movie. Like, he'll have a conversation with Sarah and then go to yell at Pauly Shore and get high with him. But it's like, there's no conflict. Like, every time we're like, why isn't he, like, fighting with her or, like, sad about being uncool now or something? It's just like, he just goes and he does something because that needs to happen for the movie to advance. And so there's lots of scenes that are just, like, weightless and frustrating.
Yeah, so that actually builds into my, like, one of my biggest low points, is that Blake and Sarah have an almost complete lack of character traits.
Yes.
You were saying, like, Blake just, like he just moves a movie from scene to scene, you know? Like, he doesn't, like, there's no, like, reasoning behind what he's doing. Like, he goes over to yell at Randy Cockfield for doing shit, and then he just ends up like, alright, let's get high. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And there's, like, no, like, conflict with Sarah until, like, the end of the movie. And also, Sarah is just a classic suburban housewife no machine.
Yeah, she exists entirely just to disagree with Blake.
Yeah, and there's, like, one point where, like, she's like, Blake, go take care of Randy Cockfield doing crazy shit in her backyard. He's like, I don't wanna. And she's like, go do it. He's like, fine. And then, like, later on in the movie, in the complete 180, he's like, I'm gonna go take care of him. And she's like, no, don't. Leave him alone. It's like, what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's again, very frustrating that it's like, it's similar to the thing I talked about with Biodome, where it's like, it's not that much work. Like, you could just come up with a couple character traits to give the character. Like...
Yeah, instead of white dude has skateboard job.
Okay, that's not a low point, but it is a funny thing. He does say the phrase skateboard job, and he does have skateboard job, which, as far as I can tell, he just goes to an office at a skateboarding company, and I don't know what he does.
He works for Steve-O, who insists on being called Shred.
Okay, yeah.
And he's like the marketing person for him. He like runs his Twitter or something.
I guess. Yeah, Steve-O is barely in this movie. He doesn't really... Like, I guess they get their money's worth from him because he does smash through a plane of glass and bang his head on a pillar at one point.
Yeah. But I don't think they asked him to do that. I think he just did that.
He was like, they're filming the scenes and he's like, you know I'm Steve-O, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, yeah. And then he just like jumps through a plane of glass.
That's a good Steve-O impression.
Thank you. This is a low point, but I do think it's kind of a low point in that it's lazy, but I fucking love in movies and TV and stuff where they have like an extreme sports guy. And like this dude's name is Shred, and they always do that. It's like, oh yeah, his name's Shred, his name's like Rip Grip Slide. And it's like in real life, the most famous extreme sports athletes are named Tony and Sean. It's like if you had like a football guy, like a football player in your movie, and he was like, "Hey, everybody, I'm Chunk Yardline,
Leatherhead.
I love the pigskin."
Oh. Yeah, for sure. Oh man, yeah. I mean, they barely tried with Blake and Sarah, and that just is probably the biggest low point of this movie because it just is so pervasive and makes the movie such a chore to watch.
Yeah, you know what's another low point related to Skateboard Job is that despite the fact that he has like no characteristics and isn't appealing in any way except I guess maybe being like blandly kind of attractive, he has a coworker that's just all over him.
Yeah, there's like no subtlety whatsoever in that. Like, no one's ever heard of subtlety anymore or will again after seeing that scene where she just kind of walks in and she's like, "So, you're getting married, huh? You want to fuck before you get married?" And she just sits on top of him.
Yeah. And do you want to, dear listener, do you want to guess if that character has any other traits or agency or point in the movie besides being horny for this completely unremarkable white guy? No, she doesn't.
Oh. No, she doesn't at all. Just hot girl, want to have sex with you. That's it.
And then he tries to have sex with her when he's horny from the drugs, and gets fired.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that scene in the Baffle Town, because the entire time, I think we lost our minds. I think that's, like, if I had to pinpoint, like, the epicenter of the earthquake, it would be that sequence of us losing our minds.
Certainly the weirdest part of the movie.
Okay, I got two more. Firstly, we could talk about the reaction that Randy Cockfield gets after having his guest house be bugged bomb.
What is that?
You don't remember?
Does he puke?
No. What's worse, he comes out of the house,
Oh.
He starts screaming, and he gets an erection, he shits himself, and he vomits at the same time.
And he drinks a lot of chlorinated pool water.
And he keeps screaming, "It's not gay."
Yeah, that's bad. That scene's bad.
Like Blake's like saying like, "Hey, sorry, I forgot to tell you the house is being bug bombed. Also, the chemicals in the bug bombing will cause all your bodily reaction to go off at once." And then like as Randy gets a boner, he's like, "It's not gay." And then Blake's also like, "Yeah, it's not gay." Just go back and forth with that screaming for a while, and it's just like, oh my god.
That's also like the closest thing that there is to a payoff to the dick-bong. In that they say the same lines that they say in the dick-bong scene.
You specifically did an extremely funny punch-up of this scene, where Randy Cockfield comes out, and instead of doing whatever he does in the movie, comes out and just says, "I'm being reborn."
That's what I'm saying, like, everything in this movie, it's like, just like, I don't know, be weirder, be anything. Just have anything going on. Please, I beg of you.
Alright, you got one more?
Let's see, I already did the comp thing. Most of the notes I have are just me complaining about the movie being boring.
Alright, I got one more, and it's minor, because it's skippable, but it is a thing. We gotta talk about the Fuck Me Bro song that's over the credits.
Yeah, why?
Apparently, like, Blake gets turned on by having Sarah call him bro or some shit. And there's this extended scene where she keeps trying to say "fuck me, bro," but they don't because Pauly Shore's up to something, and it's distracting. And then the movie just ends with a really ridiculous, overproduced song that's just "fuck me, bro." It's real bad.
Yeah, they really think that that line is funnier than it is, but they also don't, like, really sell it very hard. So, like, when that pops up in the end credits, I had completely forgotten that was even a bit in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Alright, so we've done high and low points. Do we want to pick a low point?
Oh, what is the low point of this movie? I think the most egregious thing is the nothing character. I mean, maybe just the poor writing of women. I don't know. The thing that made me groan the most was in the field. I give them my what.
Yeah. I think, like, for me, I'd have to, even though there's gross writing of women and there's the homophobic stuff, I think for me, like, the biggest egregious error of just this being a movie is that they fail to give the two main characters any character traits.
Yeah.
So, and the poor writing for women is factored in that because Sarah's just a no machine housewife. So I would pick that. How do you feel about that?
Characterization? Is that how we want to word it?
Yeah, lack of protagonist characterization.
Yeah, I think I could agree with that because that is definitely the thing. I think that is the original sin of this movie that ends up dragging everything else down with it.
Yeah, and let's see our season low point for the grungy asshole. Let me put on my glasses. Hold on, let me take a look at this. Is it worse than Pauly Shore giving himself permission to say the N-word from paid actors and also saying it a bunch?
No, it's not. Because all this did was add up to a movie that was, like, pretty bland and that I'm just not going to think about after we're done recording this podcast. Every time I see or think about Pauly Shore, I think about that part of that movie, and it makes me angry.
Okay, now that we're done that, I think we have to lock stuff in. So, locking in the season low point for On Distant Shores, Pauly Shore, of the Weasel era is plot-relevant drugging, slut-shaming, and gaslighting.
Yeah, this is the kind of, like, for context, if you haven't listened to the other episodes, this is about the final act of Son-in-Law, where they just kind of, like, can't figure out how to end the movie, so they go really overboard on making the villains act in a way that is too dark for how lighthearted the rest of the movie is.
Correct. And then locking in the grungy asshole era, which seems to be the forever era of low points, is Pauly Shore giving himself permission to say the N-word from paid actors that he paid and told them to do this.
Yeah.
And also saying it way too much. And by way too much, I mean more than once.
Yeah, look, chanting it. In a scene that he wrote and directed and stars in as himself.
Yep.
It could not be worse.
Like, I shudder to think of what could be worse than that, you know? Okay, so season high points we're locking in for the Weasel era, obviously. Wheezing the Juice, even though every time I say that, I feel sad now because of fucking Pauly Shore is dead with Bucky McChristian.
Yeah.
Ruins everything. And then the season high point for the grungy asshole era is Peanut the dog playing Jeopardy arc.
Yeah, just to be clear, they set up, like, it's the most well-constructed, it's probably the most well-constructed joke in the entire grungy asshole era. Where it is set up, called back to, and paid off that the dog watches Jeopardy and then wins at Jeopardy, and it also causes tension in the movie by delaying the dog and saving them in the last act. It's just crazy how well executed that is compared to basically every other joke in all of these other movies.
Yeah, no, it's insane.
Also, the dog defeats Stanley Tucci.
Yeah, it's true. Stanley Tucci's in that movie. Weird. And Stanley Tucci's in the movie that nobody saw.
Yeah. That's
Weird.
Fine, that's better for him. I would,
yeah,
but it would have been sad if he was in the army now.
So speaking of in the army now, we had a wheel plan for that movie that we never used. We had a wheel plan for this movie that we're probably not going to use. So I'm so sorry, William Hurt. We're not going to get with you today, but we might have you coming later. So big props to you for showing up again. See you later.
William Hurt, I just want to say that we will have you back. Begin the William healing process.
Starting with William healing process, do you want to step into the Baffle House?
I absolutely do.
Cool. Let's step into the Baffle House, where you and I can party and get stoned and clear our mind of all the terrible mind parasites that have baffled us from Guest House. Do you want to get us started, Nate?
Sure. This happened super early in the movie, and it's not that weird, but it is a thing that, like, because I stopped and was like, what? They just have, like, a whole wall of pickled stuff that we have a very deliberate shot of that doesn't ever matter. But it's like a whole ass, like, wall of just various pickled things in jars that the movie really wants us to see and then never references again.
Yes, that happens. I have a really minor one. The beginning of this movie is a very poor and boring montage of how Blake and Sarah met at this weird party. And during that party, there's a picture on the wall with a bikinied butt sandwiched between two pineapples. And that was very confusing to me.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I also want to say that montage in itself is kind of a baffling moment because it really makes their partying past seem like it's going to be way more important and thematically relevant than it actually is. There are characters that are shown in that montage who are like their friends from college where you're like, okay, they're going to come up and be important. Like Randy Cockfield's a weird party guy and he's going to like have to bring in his own like weird party Beetlejuice to fight him. Except that the only time those characters show up is for the like wedding and rehearsal dinner moments and they don't do anything.
Yeah, there's even like a hint of like Blake stealing Sarah from another dude. And then that other dude shows up at the wedding for some reason. And like Sarah's dad, Imhotep, is all about that guy. But it's barely anything. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters.
Yeah, they set up the whole, again, very lazy and cliched thing of like, her dad is Billy Zane and he's an army guy and he hates Craig Blake. And... but it doesn't matter. Nothing funny happens and he doesn't do anything. And it's pointless.
He does punch him at one point, but it's just... no one cares.
Yeah. Like, that was the other thing. I was like, oh, okay, is he gonna get, like, Billy Zane, army guy, to, like, do a Vietnam on Pauly Shore? No. Doesn't matter. Doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen. Also, Pauly Shore doesn't team up with him.
No.
It would make sense for his character to team up with a character who also hates Blake at some point, and that doesn't happen. So, Quote Corner is canceled. We're not going to do that this episode because everything's bad. But there is a specific quote that I want to have in the Baffle House because it literally, like, both of us were so baffled by just the clear lack of any subtlety whatsoever in this quote, wherein the realtor is first taking them to the house and she shows them the backyard. And word for word, she says, it's one of the largest yards in the area. Great for barbecues and summer fun and debauchery.
Yeah.
And both Nate and I like had this moment where we like looked at each other and we're like, debauchery?
Yeah.
Really?
Why did she say that? It's not even like it's not treated like a punchline. Like they don't react to it like it's supposed to be funny. Like it's a bizarre thing that she says. Again, it also feels like it's setting up something that doesn't pay off. Like, that character doesn't show back up. There's no, like, escalating bit about her being, like, secretly a weirdo or anything. Like, it's just a strange line.
It really is. It's so confusing. It's almost like the opposite of, like, a knowing joke of, like, oh, hey, here's this house. It's not cursed or anything. See you later.
I feel like it must be there for the trailer. Like, she's supposed to say that, and then it's supposed to cut to footage from the Dick Party.
Dick Party.
Hi, I'm Dick Party.
Alright, you got another one?
At the Dick Party, there's just a woman in the background breastfeeding a tiny blow-up doll. Just like a foot-tall blow-up doll of a man. And she's like in the background of a bunch of shots in that. And it's like, that extra really committed to that business of holding that doll up to her breasts.
Yeah. There's a lot of just fully naked women at that party.
Yeah, the movie's not shy about showing titties, which, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's fun. It's
It's not. It feels. It feels gross.
I mean, it's definitely exploitative. I mean, it's not reciprocated anyway. We see Bobby Lee's butt, but that's not for the purpose of titillation. That's supposed to be funny.
If Bobby Lee's butt is ever for the purpose of titillation, I think I'll vomit and get a boner, and also shit myself
And
and
be
then scream
reborn.
that and be reborn.
That's mean to Bobby Lee. Somebody out there likes to look at his butt.
All right, I stand by it. I don't care. I feel right in being mean to Bobby Lee. I'm
We
cool
shouldn't
with
be
it.
Bobby shaming.
Okay.
We're Bobby positive on this podcast.
Instead of Bobby Lee, let's talk about Tommy Lee.
Oh, yeah, another fucking Tommy Lee
The
reference.
guest house has Tommy Lee's sex swing. That's how it's described. And a big thing in this movie later on is that apparently Pauly Shore's character has a bunch of like actual historical artifacts, like Napoleon's hat.
Did his dad leave him Tommy Lee's sex swing?
That's what I was getting to. He apparently got this left by his parents. Did his parents leave him Tommy Lee's sex swing?
I don't know.
It's very. It's an off joke, but when you think about it, it's like what does that mean? What are you doing? Why? Why Tommy Lee?
Yeah, it's like what that no one cares. It's fucking 2020. But yeah, again, like they made a bunch of Tommy Lee jokes and Pauly Shore is dead. Apparently, this is something he's hung up on. Like a sex swing would be hung up.
I don't know. It would have been like funnier if they like did something like really out of nowhere. Where like this is Tommy Lee Jones's sex swing. It's like what?
Oh god, that would have been a good joke. He's like, this is Tommy Lee's sex swing, and then like he starts to say a thing. He goes, Tommy Lee Jones, and then he's like, ooh, I don't know what that means, but I'm more intrigued now.
I don't know what that means at all. All right, hit me, Nate.
Do I even have another one?
I have like a zillion more. So
I remember so little of this movie. I already said the part where he says skateboard job.
yeah, skateboard job.
That was pretty weird. No, I don't think I have any more.
All right, cool. Then we'll just be writing down mine. So we got to talk about this movie's conception of time. As we all know, time is an illusion. But when we are initially introduced to Randy Cockfield, and then Blake and Sarah are like, no, fuck this. The realtor tries to sell them by saying, oh, he'll only be here another month. And then he's gone. And then you don't have to worry about it. And then they take 3 months to move in. So by that estimate, Randy should have been gone by then, but he's not. And maybe we're like, oh, he only is a month left while they're there, right?
Maybe.
And then like there's like a definite cut in between antics where it's like 6 months later happens and he's still there. And this is like before they threaten to kick him out. And it's like, what's happening?
Yeah, this is a poor structure because it's like he's there for too long, but they don't make it seem like they've been trying to kick him out. I guess they've just been tolerating him. Then later, after way too much time has passed, they try to kick him out, and at that point, he's like, this is California, the tenant laws are in favor of the tenant, you can't get me out of here. Which feels like it should have happened in the beginning of the movie, but instead happens at like 2/3 of the way through the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's like, it really, one of the failings of this movie is it really does feel like they're not people, and they're not doing anything when the camera isn't on them.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the fuck me bro scene again. But instead we'll talk about what's happening with Randy Cockfield, as he is outside extraordinarily close to the window of their bedroom with a group of friends doing ayahuasca, where they're just vomiting on each other. But it's like, they like intentionally got like as close to the house as possible, and it's really weird.
Yeah. Which, like, also, it feels like it could have... It's one of those things where, like, I get why it's there. Like, I get the joke of the scene. But it feels like there should have been another part of it where he's, like, got some kind of weird reason of, like, look, the only place that's where the vibes are right is directly outside of your window. Or they should have been doing it further away and just so loudly that they couldn't ignore them or something.
Yeah, like, there's better ways to do that, where it's not just like, oh, we're definitely just doing that because we have to do it, right? That's the way it feels. Like, they're just out there being annoying because that's the way the plot works. But like, you can make the joke that like they're like so loud in throwing up on each other, even though they're behind the guest house, this incredibly huge yard, that you have to go out and figure out what the fuck's happening.
Yeah, also, Blake should have gone out and done ayahuasca with them, and they could have had a fun drug trip scene that they didn't have.
Speaking of Blake, I don't understand. Like, we talked about him not having character traits, but like just the out of nowhere, like, I want you gone. Also, let's get high. What the fuck?
That's what I'm saying. Like, he has no, like, until he gets fired, he has, like, no, like, character struggle or conflict. But he keeps making decisions that you would make if you did. Like, it's like they understand the structure of a movie where it's like a character has to make choices to drive the act changes. But they don't care about why they would make the choices.
Yeah, it's just like all these like 180 turns. It's like you feel like your neck getting sore of like, what's happening?
Yeah, he's just a total non-entity, and it, like, this is a good example of, like, why strong characterization is important, because even with a properly structured plot, a character not being, like, poorly characterized creates holes in the plot that, like, maybe you logically wouldn't be there, but end up being there emotionally because the character is a big nothing.
Yeah, so continuing our discussion on Blake, he constantly defends Randy to Sarah by saying he's a nice guy. Well, Randy, like, immediately is like, you pussy bitch, you fucking loser zero. Like, every time he talks to him, there's supposed to be some element of friendship there.
Yeah, until they're openly feuding. Every conversation he has without Randy about Randy is him talking about Randy being nice. And then every conversation he has with Randy, he's just getting denigrated.
Like, he says the meanest things to him just out of nowhere. And then he goes out of his way to defend this dude. Like, what? Alright, now we gotta talk about the Chris Kattan scene. Like, you don't remember this, do you?
No, I remember it. I remember the Chris Kattan scene. Because this is when they've been drugged and they're horny. And so Blake is at work. He's at skateboard job. And instead of making out with Steve-O, which would have been the funnier thing, there's the thing with him and his coworker.
Steve-O should have been the one that was into him.
Yes, I agree. Or he should have done anything. Like, why was it Steve-O? But Sarah is at home. But she's supposed to be like a school teacher?
Yeah.
We don't ever see her at work. But she's at home, and the mailman shows up. Except he's like dressed like a Pizza Hut delivery guy. And it's Chris Kattan. And I guess he's supposed to be playing like an incel? He seems like a baby in a man's body. But he's like doesn't understand sex, and she tries to like seduce him, and they like do a bunch of weird like flipped around humping on the floor, and like she pulls on his shirt, and he's like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm into it. And like that's it. And there's not really like a good joke, and he doesn't really do a bit, and he mostly doesn't have any lines.
Yeah, this whole drug thing is weird because so Randy injects this drug into their bottled water, right? And I don't know what this drug is. They at one point allude that it's Molly, and I don't think it's Molly. Because basically all it does is just make Blake and Sarah just sweaty and also extraordinarily horny and then also extraordinarily distracted. When they're like being horny, the best they can do on the people that they're kind of cheating on each other with is just hump them and then half undress them, then also get confused at their clothing.
Yeah, they're the one point where like they kind of pay lip service to the idea that it's supposed to be Molly is like Blake gets distracted by like the material that the hot woman at his job's shorts are made out of.
Right.
But like, yeah, no, it's weird because it's like it's that movie thing where it's like, well, this is not how drugs work, and no one who made this movie has ever done a drug. But it's like, I'm pretty sure Pauly Shore has done some drugs. I think they probably could have asked him how they work.
For sure. And there's also this like element of the scene where like at some point they figure out that they're on drugs, and then they're able to fight back against the drug effects, and it's very Wile E. Coyote-esque where they're like, oh no, we're on drugs. Quick, get off of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, just to quote Chris Kattan here real quick, one of the things that he said that will forever scar my mind is, yay, what do I do? In that exact tone.
I have a feeling that they didn't write anything for his character, and he was just desperately in the moment trying to come up with a concept so that he could do anything.
The joke is that Sarah grinds on you, and that's it.
And you're Chris Kattan, and that's the scene. And he's like, okay, but like, what do I do? How am I supposed to react? React like how you're Chris Kattan? Okay, sure, man.
Pretend that you're Chris Kattan in his natural element, but I am Chris Kattan. Yeah, I know. Okay, moving on. Feel free to interrupt me if you think of any more. I have, like, 4 more? I'll try to be real quick. There's... Getting back to Bobby Lee, and I hope this is the last time I do that. There's a, like, sort of, like, thing with him and Randy Cockfield where, like, they're hanging out and doing drugs, but also Bobby doesn't want to be there. And he's like, hey, can I leave? Why am I still here? Can I leave? And that happens a lot, and then, like, nothing comes of it, and it's very confusing.
Yeah, it's like, oh, is there supposed to be a conflict between them? No, he just disappears from the movie after that, and then the next time he shows up, he has no lines, but he's disguised as a waiter.
Yeah, he comes back as the waiter, but also, like, when they shut the electricity off for the guest house, and then Pauly Shore sends Bobby Lee out naked, even though Bobby Lee wasn't naked before, to turn on the generator. And you and I also joked during the bug bomb scene where he's screaming, I'm being reborn! The alternative, better than where he comes out of the drug house with the corpse of Bobby Lee's naked body.
Yeah, he's just cradling him like the Pieta.
Yeah. It was like such a missed opportunity where it's like, oh no.
I mean, you could even do the fake out where it turns out he's not dead so that you don't have the main character of your comedy movie be a murderer.
Also, it would have been extraordinarily funny if, like, like the way that Bug Bomb backfires is the whole, like, Bobby Lee is dead thing, where it's not even like he's trying to get back at him, he just thinks Bobby Lee is dead. He's like, you have to help me bury him. And they go to, like, dig a hole in the backyard, and they put Bobby Lee in the hole, and then Bobby Lee wakes up from the impact of being thrown into a hole and screams.
Yeah, man. See, that's saying there's so much. There's just nothing in this movie, and there's so much that they just could have just done a little bit.
Yeah, so speaking of Bobby Lee showing up as a waiter later on, there's like this infiltration thing at the wedding where, like, oh, you see some of Pauly Shore's friends being there, and it's like, oh, he's doing something in the background. But also, like, apparently one of his friends is the priest, and the priest is just flubbing all of his lines.
It's also so lazy that they're just, like, having the wedding in the backyard of the house.
Oh, yeah.
This movie has 2 locations. Or it has 3 locations, I guess. It's police station, skateboard job, and the house.
But the biggest thing about, like, the priest being shitty is, like, first off, for a wedding, you select your priest, right? Select your fighter.
I choose Ryu as my priest.
Select your fighter for God. But also, like, when he's, like, started to be shitty, it's like, wouldn't you notice something is up?
Yeah, it's like he's replaced all the people in their wedding crew. I don't know what you call it, but, like, not the guests at the wedding, but the people who are facilitating the wedding happening. With his poorly set up and barely fleshed out cronies. Also, the priest is not a guy we had seen before. Like, we see Bobby Lee and, like, one of his other friends, like, as, like, waiters and ushers, and then, like, the priest who has the most lines in this scene is just a totally new character.
Also, these are people that Blake has, like, partied with. You think he'd recognize them.
Yes, he's seen them. But I guess he's supposed to have been blackout drunk. He should recognize Bobby Lee immediately, but I guess he was supposed to be blackout drunk from the dick party, so maybe that's why he doesn't recognize most of them.
I don't know.
But yeah, it is one of those things where it's like, wow, these characters are really dumb. That's not helping me be engaged with this movie.
No. And then let's talk about how they decide to resolve this movie with Randy Cockfield. They just make him a millionaire. And also, he owns the house because it's his family house, but he also doesn't own the house and lives in the guest house. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, there's no, like, and there's no hint at this. He doesn't, like, get emotional or make any references. He doesn't bring up his dad. This comes out of completely nowhere. It's, like, a totally unsatisfying resolution that's just, like, I guess it makes sense in that it is something that is possible to happen, but, like, why? What does this mean? Who cares?
You and I, because we do self-care and we try to watch good movies every now and then, recently watched In the Heights, which is another movie that ends with a character just becoming rich.
Yeah, at least that's set up, though. At least they, like, have a song about the lottery before the character wins the lottery.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like that idea because it feels very cheap. It's like very like, oh, this character has a lot of problems, but he gets rich at the end, so he's fine. You know, it doesn't feel earned.
Yeah, but at least it doesn't actually, it solves his problems monetarily, but he still has to make, like, a choice. He still has a resolution to his character arc that's not just he wins the lottery. He still has to do something at the end, which is why that's, like, a pretty good movie overall.
Right, which is better than this, movie. Where he doesn't have a choice. He is just rich at the end, and that just solves the problem.
Yeah. Also, now he's a rich guy that's friends with a cop. So that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks, because I think the cop was on the boat, right?
Cop is on the boat, yes.
Oh, no.
Cop on a boat? What will he do? Probably something bad.
And then, finally, another thing at the end, which both you and I, like, loudly were confused about, was when it ends with Randy explaining that he's rich now, and also this was his parents' house, and he felt bad, so he got them back together. And then I also gave them a baby room that he had people do. And then he ends it by saying, and what are you going to do with your fine lady? You're going to give her your cock feel. Or some other shit. I don't actually remember what he says. But the entire time he's doing it, and he's doing these like random hit thrusts, he just doesn't make eye contact with anybody.
Yeah, it's weirdly staged. It's almost creepy.
It's exceptionally creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, great. We had to definitely call back to the fucking in the field line. That's a great way to end the movie.
Totally. So that is all I have. Do you have anything else to add for the Baffle House?
No, there's a bunch of YouTube people in this. I was
going to talk about that in Side Character Shadow.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Because I was going to say we brought it up a little bit when we were talking about Mr. Macaroni, the tyranny of Mr. Macaroni. But we'll talk about it.
That's a book I would read.
It sounds pretty good.
Okay, so let's get out of the Baffle House before we are forced to be there forever, and
before we get bug bombed.
Before we get bugged on, and you have to come out cradling my naked corpse, screaming that you're being reborn.
Or you think you're the Bobby Lee in this relationship?
I don't know.
I think I'm the Bobby Lee.
One of us had to be the Bobby Lee, and I didn't want to insult you.
Well, that's fair.
So I fell on that grenade for you, buddy.
I think it would be funnier to see my butt. So I think I'm the Bobby Lee.
Oh, thanks, man. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Okay. Let's get into essentials, I guess. Oh boy,
Yeah, I can't believe we haven't done that, or I feel like we already did it, but I'm gonna be real with you, I don't think this adds anything.
Okay, no, but I think we have to take away shit.
Okay.
So, this is Grungy Asshole. It always, forever will be Grungy Asshole, because Pauly Shore doesn't learn a lesson. It doesn't change anything, and it's just, this is like him, after, like, 17 years, and Pauly Shore is dead. It's just him doing the same thing he did in Jury Duty Biodome in the Army now. Like, it's just the same.
It's so weird because so much of, well, like the entirety of Pauly Shore is Dead is about like breaking free from the weasel. But he never acknowledges this other persona and seems to have no desire to get past it. When this is like infinitely worse than the weasel. And the reliance on this grungy asshole persona is almost certainly way more of the reason why he's considered like a washed up has-been than the weasel stuff.
For sure. Like, if he kept to the weasel stuff, I feel like he would have been going a lot stronger.
I don't even think, yes. I mean, I don't want him to have to do the weasel thing all the time.
Right.
Like, but it's like, clearly there were elements of the weasel that he could have brought into a more well-rounded persona that he just jettisoned to do this fucking thing over and over again. And I don't get it.
Yeah, me neither. Me neither. So let's run through this. First one, get by quick scheme, something to help him live his life with minimal effort. And I feel like that happens in this movie because this entire thing is squatters' rights.
Yeah, exactly. It's less active than other versions, but yeah, I agree.
It's passive, but it's there. Second thing is 90s slacker, which I feel like we should just cross off our list.
I mean, I think saying 90s slacker specifically, I guess, is inaccurate because he's come past the 90s, But like the clarification we give of mooch/freeloader is still true, though I don't know how much that needs to be independent from the first part of the essentials.
Yeah.
Like, in order for that to exist, he's kind of already that, right?
Right. So I think we just cross this off.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Little regard for authority, but also willing to work with authority. And somehow,
Yeah, absolutely. In
this
movie.
is a huge part of his character. I don't understand it, but it's like is so consistent.
Yeah, again, yeah, it's baffling. I don't. This persona is way more consistent than the Weasel, but it's never acknowledged as being a thing. I guess just because it doesn't have a name.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very weird. But that's a thing. It's a bad thing. I don't like it, but it's a thing.
Yeah, it's like a driving force in this movie. Like, he's a dick to the people that own the house, but he's friends with a cop. Like, it's like 100%. Like, it's like the most crystalline example of this character trait.
For sure. The next one is grungy outfits, which I think, again, we should just cross off the list.
Yes. The thing with this movie is, it's like almost is through the costuming trying to trick you into thinking that he's being the Weasel again. He's got weaselly outfits, but it does not, he wears like a drug rug and like baggy pants and stuff, but it doesn't that's it. He doesn't do any of the other stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of just like, hey, dress like a drug dealer.
Yeah.
So I feel like we should just like cross that off and then just not have anything about outfits in our essentials because whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what I think this is like a leftover from Ernest Brain where we were like hat and vest, but it's like there's no uniform here.
Yeah, but there is uniform personality, and with that in mind, selfish, dumb, chaotic asshole, slave to his own whims.
Absolutely.
Unbelievably horny.
Yes, there's a we didn't reference it, but there's a recurring not funny bit that he's like a chubby chaser.
Yes. One point, somebody walks in on him having sex with a bigger hooker on the sex swing. I think it might have been Blake. Who knows or cares? And also, he raps with the cop about being on chubby chasers.
Yeah, and it's this movie benefits from being so lazy that they don't make as big a deal out of it as they could have. Like, yeah. It's less body shamey than I thought it was going to be when it first came up, just because they're too lazy to make any more jokes out of it besides just showing him with a larger woman.
Yep.
And I was like braced for like, oh, this is going to be so fucking bad. And then I was like, oh no, it's nothing because this movie's nothing.
Yep, that's how we felt throughout this entire film. Next thing, unself-aware, 100%.
For sure.
The classic Nate favorite, doesn't learn a lesson but gets rewarded anyway.
I mean, like, the movie wants you to think he learned a lesson because he does a nice thing at the end, but like, how is his character any different? He just learns, he just decides he doesn't hate Blake. Like, he definitely doesn't learn a lesson, and he definitely is rewarded. He gets to be rich and on a boat at the end of the movie, despite being just a huge dick through the whole thing.
Yeah, like when you see him on the boat, he's still the same person. He's still a dick. He didn't learn shit.
Yeah.
And then, of course, very whiny.
Yeah, still. I mean, less whiny. I think the most whiny he's ever been is jury duty.
No, the most whiny he's ever been is Pauly Shore's dead.
Oh, yeah, you're right, for sure. Yes, you're absolutely
right. But does it have a part for me?
Pauly Shore is Dead is a feature-length whine.
I mean, yeah, that's what it is.
Not to be confused with my movie-themed brand of wines, feature-length wines.
Very good, by the way. Major plug for feature-length wine. Drink it while you're recording a podcast. It won't make you flub all your lines. I promise. Okay, so that's it. Do we want to add anything or take anything else away? How do we feel?
No, this movie couldn't possibly have anything to add. I mean, like, it's not an essential, but I would like to keep in mind that we should definitely make a movie that's less boring than this.
Yes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 essentials.
Oh my god.
That all sound awful. They all sound like terrible.
I've been thinking about, I'm not going to say anything because we're going to do a whole episode, but I've been thinking about this essentials list like a lot. This has been like haunting me. Like, like the meme of that like line from, I think it's from one of the new Star Wars movies where he's like, I know what I have to do, but I don't think I have the strength to do it. There's been a conclusion I've come to about what I think our pitch has to be. that, like, has just been squatting in my brain for weeks. I'm just like, I don't want to, but I know what this needs to be. So, prepare yourself for that.
Very excited to see how that'll turn out next episode.
Man, this whole season has been just a fucking mess. Like, I am like, even though it was like less than a year ago, I'm like so nostalgic for the first season of this podcast.
Yeah, you're banned from picking seasons for the podcast, and I'm gonna take charge for the next 2 or 5.
I wouldn't disagree with you. I made a terrible mistake, but also
You sure have.
Maybe this is a work of art. I don't know.
I don't know. I just feel like after Ernest, we just took on the role of Icarus and just literally flew ourselves right into the sun.
I know, dude. I remember like us. We finished recording the season finale of the first season. And I was like, wow, that was really good. This has been good. We made a good podcast. And so quickly into the season, I was like, why did we ever do this? What is wrong with us?
Oh, boy. Yeah. All right. So, lots to look forward to next episode, for sure. Especially because, like, what will it be? Who the fuck knows? Anyway, locking down our essentials for the grungy asshole. We got the get by quick scheme. We got the little regard for authority, but also willing to work with authority. Selfish, dumb, chaotic asshole, slave to his own whims. Unbelievably horny. Unself-aware. Doesn't learn a lesson but gets rewarded anyway. And very whiny. You take all of that, you mix it into a bowl, you put it in the oven on 350 for approximately 50 minutes, and then you drown yourself in it. And that's how you do that recipe.
You gotta cook it at this temperature and time that ensures that it will be as hot as possible on the outside and as cold as possible on the inside.
Oh, boy.
Look, if you're listening to this and you're hearing this list of essentials and you think that sounds bad and it seems like it's impossible to make a movie that's not bad out of that, hey man, I agree, but we're gonna try.
Here we are.
We don't give up on this podcast.
Alright, we also have the Weasel Essentials, which are just dead, and we'll deal with that. Maybe we'll include them in our final pitch. We'll talk more about that in that episode. But we have the side character shout-out left, and then we also... we're in the penultimate episode. We should probably do a ranking of all the Pauly Shore movies we've watched.
Yes.
So which one do you want to do first?
Let's do side character shout-out and end with the ranking. That makes the most sense.
Alright. Quick side character shout-out to all Sam Macaroni's YouTube buddies, who have basically no lines in this movie. We gotta give a side character shout out to Prank vs. Prank Guy, who's also now sad divorce guy. We gotta give a side character shout out to Timothy De La Get No Lines, because he has no lines in this movie. There's literally an extended hospital scene where he's just sitting there not having lines, and it's awful.
And they joke about how he's probably gonna die.
Yes! And there's also White Dread's Neck Break.
He's got the most to do, I guess, because he kind of does a stunt where he sort of like water skis on their pool. His presence was very distracting because I didn't recognize him, but they kept cutting to him and he was like very distinctive looking because he's a white guy with blonde dreads. And they kept cutting to his face and I was like, should I know who that is?
Yeah, and also they didn't introduce him beforehand, right? So it's like just this random dude that you don't know of. And if you don't know his YouTube stuff, and you wouldn't know him. Yeah, and then also Sam Macaroni himself gets a little side character shout out as he shows up as the world's shittiest doctor.
Yeah, it's in the scene where the other guy's in the hospital. Yeah, it makes more sense now. I was confused at the time because I was like, why are there so many YouTube people? Now you've explained Sam Macaroni's sordid past, I'm like, okay, I get it. Because at first I was like, is this just like a promotional tactic? Why? I would be so disappointed if I was a fan of these people and I watched this movie because they were in it and they didn't do anything. But now that it's like, oh, these are just people from his circle that are having cameos, it makes more sense.
Yep, and this is the saddest side character shout out I've ever done. So that's fun.
Okay, is that it?
That's it. That's all I got, buddy.
Alright, let's rank these.
We could do the ranking of all the Pauly Shore movies we've watched, and we're just gonna take a second and tell you that any movie that's not on this list is not worth your time, even though the movies on this list, most of them are not worth your time. Anything else that we don't mention, like, don't even bother, dude. Don't even.
Well, I mean, there's the Goofy movie.
Well, sure, fine. I'm not talking about, like, voice roles.
Yeah.
Right? That's, like, always a different category. I'm talking about, like, in-person stuff.
Yeah, we're not gonna watch every movie he's been in because that would have. Oh my! I would have just. I mean, I would have just fled to the wilderness at that point. I would have just gone full into the wild and eaten a bad plant and died in a bus.
If we watched every Pauly Shore movie, I think it would end in the same scene of me carrying you naked out of the house.
Yeah. Okay, I predict that our rankings are pretty much going to be exactly the same. I don't remember how our. I think they were pretty different for Ernest.
Yeah, they're pretty different for Ernest because we both had a different number one spot. But I think we're going to have the same completely for this. So I challenge you, Nate, right here, right now, to make this entertaining for our podcast, to name them at the same time, and then we can talk about it.
Okay, let's start at the bottom and go up.
Sure. All right, so starting at the bottom.
I mean, not that anyone's going to be surprised.
7.
Pauly Shore is dead. Yeah, of course.
The worst one. One of the worst movie we've ever watched for this podcast. So, to people, I don't know why I started like that. We recorded these in advance, so at the time in our lives, as we're recording this, it's a day after we put up the In the Army Now episode. So I re-listened to that yesterday, and it was like mind-blowing, like how down and negative and defeated we are. But I know that, like, I'm like listening to Past Us, and I was like, oh no, buddies, you don't even know. You don't even know. I cannot believe that we ended up finding in this season, not just in the length of the show, a movie that is worse than In the Army Now, which, like, if you listen to that episode, there's an extended bit where I talk about how I'd let someone shoot me in the head before I'd watch that movie again, and then we watched a worse one.
Yeah, there's an extended bit, too, of me, like, losing my mind and trying to say this isn't a Pauly Shore movie. And boy howdy, did I not know what was coming to me.
Yeah, this season has been a ride, but like to hell. This has been a midnight meat train.
This has been a highway to hell.
6.
In the Army Now. Yeah, of course. You know, that is, we didn't think we'd go lower, but we did. So somehow, In the Army Now gets to be not the last thing on the list.
Here's the thing. Is Dead is worse, but it's a testament to how bad In the Army Now is that despite being worse, it doesn't make In the Army Now look better. Like in the Army Now episode, we talk about how that made like the bad Ernest movies seem better. That is not the effect here. In the Army Now is a constant of badness. I said it was total garbage before, and I stand by it.
For sure.
5.
Biodome.
Oh.
Ooh. Here we go. Difference. I argue a Biodome is a worse movie because I was literally like actively losing my mind as that was going on. Where in Guest House I was just dissociating. So Guest House is like mediocre, more mediocre than ever, and extremely forgettable. Where Biodome has moments that I'll never get out of my brain.
Okay, I will argue that Guest House is worse by saying, and then this is the part where you take what you just said and play it again, but like put a filter on it so it sounds like my voice.
I'm not gonna do that, so I need you to say it.
I mean, Biodome is like more vibrant and weirder, and I enjoy the feeling of like losing it and being like, why is any of this happening? Over the feeling of like, why am I watching this? Which is the feeling I got from Guest House. Also, Biodome contains a part that made me laugh so hard I had trouble breathing. So, like, it's not good, and I don't think that joke is good, but, like, I gotta give it props over Guest House, which is just completely unentertaining. And I, like, forgot a major plot point because the movie was so bland. And, like, I will take annoying, but, like, lively over boring and lifeless any day.
That's a fair point, and it sort of sways me, but I'm going to stick to my ranking. So for me, Biodome's in 5. For you, Guest House is in 5. And I think we're going to reverse that for 4.
4.
Biodome.
Guest House. Yeah, reversed. Okay, fine.
3.
Jury Duty. Yes. A movie that is also forgettable, but at least is more fun-spirited and has an arc that is not forgettable. I haven't like I will hold on to the dog being on Jeopardy arc because it's very good, and just like think of ways to include that in future pitches. Not exactly, but something in the spirit of that, because it's very funny.
Yeah, yeah. Also, it just has like weird moments that I also think are very memorable. The fucking Richard Reel surfing part, Dick Vitale's head exploding. Like, there's bonkers choices in Jury Duty that are memorable. I think the movie is like really poorly structured. Probably even more so than something that's shapeless like Biodome. I think it's maybe the worst structured movie of this season. But it's got just more going on than the ones that are below it.
Also, it feels more like a movie than the ones that are below it.
I agree.
Okay.
2,
Son-in-law. Yep, that's right. Pauly Shore's vehicle that is mostly just okay, but enjoyable because he's being the weasel in it.
It's kind of the only like real Pauly Shore movie in the way that we thought they were going to be when we got into this season. Because like Encino Man, he's not the star. He's the star of the other ones, but he's not doing this persona. It's like really the only movie where it's like Pauly Shore is playing the weasel and he is the main character of the movie. It's also surprisingly pleasant and charming. Very like it's totally watchable, but also like I know why you would watch it because it's kind of fun. The last act is not great, but like, man, compared to everything else, who cares?
Right, and it's like we talked about with our Dome Tyler when we were talking about Pauly Shore is Dead, where like it got dinged on so much, but it's actually one of the more tolerable ones. Like, why?
Oh, for sure.
Why didn't you say shit about fucking In the Army Now or Biodome? Like, what are you doing? Why is Son-in-Law the bad one? It's not.
No, it's really not. Tyler talked about like that being on TV a lot and watching it over and over again, and it's like I totally get it. If I turn on TV and Son-in-Law is on, I'm probably gonna watch it, at least a little bit of it.
Yeah, you might not stick around for the whole movie, but at least you'll like sit down and eat something while you watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and then finally the best movie that has Pauly Shore in it.
1,
Ernest Slam Dunk. We both did a dumb joke, but no, it's Encino Man.
Yeah, it's Encino Man, of course.
Of course it's Encino Man. Of course it's Encino Man. Of course it's Encino Man.
It's dumb, but it's fun. It's charming. It's got a goofy premise that it actually does something with. There's at least one moment of like surprisingly like artful character writing with the fire thing. I think we were both taken aback by like, wow, that's actually very well done.
Yeah, it's very deep.
Pauly Shore is funny in it. Like the main character sucks, but he doesn't suck really any worse than other like 80s and early 90s comedy protagonists.
For sure, and also because Pauly Shore is so likable in that movie, he kind of transcends Dave. Like I've seen posters for Encino Man with just Pauly Shore's Stoney and Brendan Fraser's Link, and it's like that's all you need. You don't need Dave,
and you don't need to meet Dave.
By the way, speaking of Meet Dave, I do not ever want to do Murphy's Law Eddie Murphy season, because that would probably be bad.
I think even the good ones I don't think really hold up very well.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of Eddie Murphy movies I have a lot of fond memories of, but a part of me is like, oh. Like, I think about him being in a fat suit in Nutty Professor, and I'm like, that's gotta be terrible, right? It's gotta be bad.
Yeah, and then we'd also have to watch Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd and blackface.
Yeah. Man, Dan Aykroyd, huh? He makes some decisions. He do be deciding to do things.
He was like, no, the ghost is real, and then she's sucking on my wiener.
Oh, what a strange guy.
I like
a
it,
Dan Aykroyd season?
I would consider it. I would consider it over an Eddie Murphy season. Anyway, we did our ranking. I don't know how much that helps in our journey, because it's very bleak, but here we are. What else we got to do here, Nate?
What else do we have to do here? Well, we don't have any more movies left to watch, which means we have to fulfill the promise of the title of this podcast. And in the next episode, come hell or high weasel, come wheeze or high water, we're gonna pitch the perfect Pauly Shore movie. Now, perfect, I need everyone to understand that perfect does not mean good. The atom bomb is the perfect killing machine, and it is objectively bad. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, we're going to cut that off there and not reveal anything else because we want you to tune in for this insane thing that's going to be our finale, which we hope to blow you away with in a good way and not the bad atom bomb turn you into a skeleton way, although it might be. Who knows? Join us then. Anything else you want to say, Nate?
No.
Okay. Well, then, as always, truly, nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Fuck me, bro!
You got me. I wasn't expecting that. That was good.
Thank you.
Bottom line is, man, just love one another, peace and stuff, alright? Word to the wind, ace up, O's, I'm out of here. Ow.